The issue of electric vehicles spontaneously combusting has finally backfired on the Chinese government. On July 2nd, a police car in a certain region of Guangdong spontaneously caught fire on the road. Bystanders quickly took out their phones to capture this shocking scene, but were stopped by two police officers who escaped from the burning car. In the video, we can clearly hear them shouting at the crowd, "Please don't take pictures," and "Delete the videos." These were classic lines from Chinese police. The government, which has allowed substandard electric vehicles to circulate in the market, is gradually facing the consequences. Spontaneous combustion incidents in China are not limited to vehicles. Recently, a video surfaced online showing a traffic signal also catching fire, emitting thick black smoke. Among the crowd, there were exclamations of, "Look, the traffic light is on fire," and someone shouted, "This is too scary." For a moment, the quality of Made in China became the focus of public discussion once again. But that wasn't the end. Recently, BYD, a major electric vehicle giant heavily supported by the Chinese government, also became the subject of ridicule. On July 2nd, a test drive video of a mainland car owner went viral online. In the video, a salesperson from BYD's sub-brand Denza asked the user to take their hands off the steering wheel to experience the vehicle's autonomous driving feature during the test drive. You could take your hands off the steering wheel and don't need to brake. Smart driving is now activated. It will stop if there's a car in front. Okay, but don't hit that white car. It won't. Just don't move. I'm not moving. Should I still not move? Don't move. It hit. Brake, brake. Didn't you tell me not to move and not to brake? Ultimately, despite a vehicle ahead, Denza's intelligent driving system failed to detect and automatically brake, resulting in the test car rear-ending the vehicle in front. Following the accident, the customer questioned the salesperson, "Didn't you say it would brake on its own?" The salesperson explained, "This is the first time I've encountered this situation. I thought it would brake on its own." As expected, the video went viral online, sparking a public outcry about the quality of electric vehicles, but BYD has not responded to the incident. Recently, a driver in Xinyu City, Jiangxi Province, purchased a BYD vehicle for ride-hailing services. The driver experienced an electric shock due to a leakage issue in the driver's seat shortly after buying the car. This incident led to a brain hemorrhage, and the driver was hospitalized. The hospital's medical certificate confirmed the electric shock injuries, and his back was covered with blisters when he was admitted. BYD responded to the incident by preliminarily ruling out the possibility that the electric shock caused the driver's illness, essentially denying any quality issues with their vehicles. They also refused to cover the driver's medical expenses or provide compensation. Therefore, even if BYD responds to the test drive accident, it is likely to deny any quality issues and shirk responsibility. The problems with electric vehicles are not limited to BYD. Another incident involved an electric car from the NIO brand. In Zhengzhou, Henan Province, a female driver reported that while her NIO electric car was operating normally, the accelerator pedal unexpectedly came off.
Look at this strange thing. The accelerator pedal actually came off.
The Zhengzhou car owner questioned the quality of the car, believing there was an issue, but after communicating with the seller, they responded that this design is intended to prevent secondary injuries. This explanation was even more absurd, since the accelerator pedal came off while driving at a normal speed of only 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. So what secondary injuries could there be? Meanwhile, the Chinese government continues to tout the miracle of Chinese electric vehicle exports, and has long subsidized and supported such companies to achieve low cost and rapid export growth. But they did not pay any attention to the design and quality issues of these electric vehicles. Earlier this year, a Chinese auto mechanic criticized domestic electric vehicles in his video. He said, "Here I am criticizing our electric vehicle designers. I just can't understand this issue. I'd like to ask the designers why they designed it this way." Using a hybrid vehicle as an example, he expressed his confusion about the design, noting that the battery is positioned at the lowest point in the chassis, which makes it prone to catastrophic fires. He further explained, Traditional gasoline cars know to place a fuel tank and other rear components higher than the front chassis. That way, if there's a big rock ahead, it hits the subframe first, slowing down the vehicle. But if the battery is always at the lowest point, any collision will cause the battery to explode and the car will be totaled. The passengers inside will also be in danger. Isn't that scary? Did the designers intentionally leave this flaw to prematurely retire the vehicle? Some might think, let it be a write-off, there's insurance. But you really don't understand what it's like to write off a car. Never rely on Chinese insurance companies. Don't think they'll cover everything. He also advised car owners, you must avoid hitting the battery while driving, but the manufacturers haven't helped you with that. They've left the first line of defense open. If there was a first line of defense, it could slow us down before hitting the battery. But since the battery is lower than the subframe, obstacles are likely to hit the battery. If it were a fuel tank, it would leak and catch fire. The battery is the same, but it's much more complicated than a fuel tank. It could either catch fire or be totaled. People who watched the video commented, the designers made it this way primarily for the good looks and flashy features, which drive sales. Secondly, it's to intentionally make the car break down sooner so people will have to spend money to buy a new one. Another person questioned, strictly speaking, this design doesn't meet the safety standards. Such cars shouldn't even be allowed on the market. In recent years, many domestic car companies have launched high-end sub-brand new energy vehicles and introduced high-priced models. But a high price doesn't equal a luxury car, and a luxury brand cannot be built in just a few years. Looking at the Chinese market, many companies aim for the high-end segment, but few truly live up to the luxury label. Especially for some new car makers, the so-called luxury often only reflects the high price tag, while the advanced technology, safety standards, and unique design elements expected in luxury cars are sorely lacking. The business-focused Zeekr brand electric car, which set the record for the fastest launch in the history of electric car companies, was launched in the US in May. As a high-end electric car brand launched by Geely Holding Group, its starting price is 269,000 RMB. A Zeekr 001 owner in Hefei Anhui discovered an issue with his car door. It couldn't be unlocked. The system indicated that the door was open, but in reality it was only ajar, with the door lock still engaged, making it impossible for people to get out of the car. The owner said in a video, "This is my vehicle identification number. It has already been driven 58,000 kilometers. Today is May 24th. I just got down to my apartment building, and the car door won't open. Look, the lock is open, but the door just won't open. The same goes for the passenger side. If this were an emergency, would people be locked inside to wait for death? Is this what Zeekr electric cars are?" According to Mr. Yu, the owner involved in the incident, he eventually unlocked the car door through the central control screen and lowered the window to open the door from the outside. Before he could open the door, he had been locked inside for more than 10 minutes. After the incident, Mr. Yu contacted Zeekr customer service and scheduled a repair and inspection for Saturday. On the morning of the appointment, Mr. Yu tried the car door a few times. The first and second attempts failed to open the door, but on the third attempt, the door opened and the car functioned normally thereafter. At the 4S dealership, they couldn't replicate the issue and the car door continued to operate normally. But they informed him that the vehicle inspection revealed that the door could not lock and that there was an anomaly. The dealership's solution was to order replacement parts and proceed with the repairs once the parts arrived. Throughout the process, it was the staff from the Lincoln Company 4S dealership who communicated with Mr. Yu about the repair plan. No official personnel from Zeekr were involved in the handling of the follow-up matters. Mr. Yu also mentioned that he deeply regretted purchasing the Zeekr 001 as he had experienced various issues over the 2 years of ownership, requiring repairs about 20 to 30 times. There was even a previous incident where he couldn't open the car door from the outside while standing outside the car. He said, "On the day I picked up the car, the door was misaligned, but the staff said it could be adjusted, so I went ahead and picked up the car. Within 2 months, the sunroof had welding slag, so they had to dismantle the entire sunroof to clean it. I also want to inform other owners of older Zeekr 001 models that similar issues with electric doors are likely to recur. If the manufacturer cannot clearly explain why the mechanical lock won't open, I might have to bear the loss myself, but I just want to ask, does it take a major problem or a fatality for Zeekr to take responsibility? Prior to this incident, Geely's high-end brand had already been exposed for its malfunction issues, and BYD was also reported to have problems, such as air conditioning vents, emitting large amounts of aluminum hydroxide, and other incidents of electrical leakage. These faults pose significant threats to the safety of both drivers and passengers, but no new electric vehicle company has stepped forward to acknowledge responsibility and provide compensation. So even if major issues or fatalities occur, Zeekr is unlikely to take action. XPeng Motors' so-called advanced technology has also been criticized by users. One owner mentioned that for facial recognition, you have to get out of the car and half kneel to see the camera. It's like bowing to the car before driving to prevent it from striking out of displeasure halfway through. Additionally, Huawei's electric car, Aito M5 Intelligent Driving Edition, was exposed last year for having a malfunction with its autonomous emergency braking technology, or AEB. A driver reported that while reversing, the car suddenly accelerated and the rear wheels climbed directly onto the roof of the car behind. Regarding Huawei's AEB technology, during the launch of the new Aito M7 in mid-September last year, Chairman of Huawei's Intelligent Automotive Solution, BU, Richard Yu, proudly announced the so-called industry's first omnidirectional anti-collision system. He even boldly claimed that with AEB, it's hard to crash even if you wanted to while reversing. The incident was a significant blow to Yu's claims. But Yu later admitted that the vehicle's rear emergency braking does not recognize stationary vehicles. If the reversing system cannot identify stationary objects, what difference does it make whether the system exists or not? Despite the quality issues, electric vehicles have seen a substantial increase in exports over the past year. According to data from the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers in 2023, China's total vehicle production and sales reached 30.2 million and 30.1 million units respectively, marking a year-on-year increase of 11.6% and 12%. These figures set new records and achieved double-digit growth. In terms of exports, over 5.2 million vehicles were exported in 2023, a 57.4% increase compared to 2022. These statistics have been touted by the Chinese government as evidence that China is poised to become the world's largest car exporter. In reality, these seemingly impressive numbers are the result of intense competition, waste, and losses within China's domestic auto industry. The massive production and aggressive price competition have become the main culprits behind the declining quality of new energy vehicles. Take the Zeekr 001, which locked people inside, as an example. Its parent company, Geely Holding Group, recently released its first financial report since the brand's launch. The report revealed that in the first quarter of 2024, Zeekr achieved a revenue of 14.7 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase of 71%, but a quarter-on-quarter decrease of 9.9%. The net loss was about 2 billion RMB. This means that despite the significant increase in sales for Zeekr in the first quarter, the brand still incurred a loss of over 2 billion RMB. Zeekr is following the path of many Chinese electric vehicle companies which are selling cars at a loss. It is worth noting that Chinese electric vehicle companies have been selling cars at a loss for many years. Recently, the first quarter financial reports of 4 major Chinese EV startups revealed significant losses. NIO reported a net loss of about 5.3 billion RMB, XPeng Motors a net loss of about 1.4 billion RMB, Li Auto a net loss of 540 million RMB, and Leap Motor a net loss of about 1 billion RMB. The losses extend beyond car manufacturers to dealerships as well. According to a survey by the China Automobile Dealers Association, in the first half of 2024, only 18.4% of dealers achieved their semi-annual sales targets. 34.8% completed more than 80% of their targets, while 13.5% failed to reach 50% of their targets. Previously, automakers and dealers would set annual and quarterly sales targets and develop business policies for dealers based on these goals. If dealers met their sales targets, manufacturers would provide rebate rewards. But based on current sales performance, many dealers are unable to meet their targets, resulting in most of them not receiving or only partially receiving various rebate subsidies. Data disclosed by the China Automobile Dealers Association on June 30th showed that the inventory warning index for Chinese auto dealers reached 62.3% in June, an 8.3 percentage point increase year-on-year and a 4.1 percentage point increase month-on-month. This index reached a new high for the year, indicating that domestic demand in the mainland auto market remains weak, and auto dealers will continue to face pressure. For dealers, the inventory warning index used 50% as a dividing line between prosperity and decline. An index below 50% is considered reasonable. The higher the warning index, the lower the demand in the auto market, leading to greater inventory pressure and increased operational pressure and risk. Since January 2024, the index has remained above 50%, highlighting the persistent slump in the Chinese auto market. The pressure on inventory in the Chinese auto market is expected to further increase after June. Many regions will enter the busy farming season, and factors such as hot weather and heavy rains in the south will negatively impact customer traffic and sales for dealers. Additionally, dealers had high hopes for the trade-in policy incentives and the large-scale June 18th promotion. During the promotion, they increased inventory and offered significant discounts, even selling cars at a loss. But actual sales fell short of expectations, further worsening their operating conditions. Many people attribute the sluggish auto market to the lack of money among the general populace. One person commented, "The fundamental reason for weak domestic demand is poverty. People are genuinely running out of money. It's not just an act." Some people question why new energy vehicle companies and dealers continue to persist in this sector despite the significant losses. A blogger named Digital Gods of Honor provided his perspective on this issue. He said, "You don't really think you're making money by selling cars, do you? Over the past few years, electric vehicles have become a hot topic in China's economy. That's why you see companies from various industries jumping into car manufacturing, regardless of the costs. As a result, our auto market suddenly has over 100 electric vehicle brands, and 99% of them are losing money. Last year, XPeng lost over 5 billion RMB, NIO lost over 10 billion RMB, and even Ceres, with Huawei's support, lost 1.3 billion RMB. If everyone is losing money, why are they all rushing into this market? Simply put, capital isn't about making money from profits. For example, if you register a company today in a Series A funding, Investor 1 gives you 5 million RMB for 10% of your equity. Your company's valuation reaches 50 million RMB. At this point, Investor 1 hasn't made any money, but in Series B funding, Investor 2 invests 50 million RMB, and you give up another 10% of your equity. Your company's valuation then skyrockets to 200 million RMB. By Series C funding, Investor 3 directly invests 200 million RMB, and you give up another 10% of your equity. But your company's valuation has now reached 2 billion RMB. Now, Investor 1's initial 50 million RMB investment is worth 2 billion RMB, a fourfold increase. If Investor 1 exits at this point, they make a net profit of 195 million RMB. This is a game of capital. As long as the rules don't collapse, it keeps rolling forward. So whether car companies are making or losing money, investors don't really care. Similarly, the reputation and quality of electric vehicles, aspects that benefit consumers, are not a priority for these companies. Fundamentally, these enterprises are engaged in the financing game rather than focusing on vehicle sales. Consumers who are lured by the hype and low prices into purchasing electric vehicles are essentially buying into an uncertain future with no guarantees.